They say revenge is a dish best served cold. But let me tell you something. Mine was served ice cold, calculated, and with a side of complete financial ruin. My ex-husband thought he could throw me away like trash when I was carrying his child. He had no idea who he was messing with. Hey, everyone. I'm about to tell you a story that still doesn't feel real sometimes, even though I lived every single moment of it. This is about betrayal, heartbreak, and how I went from being a broke single mother sleeping on my mama's couch to the woman who systematically dismantled my ex-husband's entire business empire. And yes, every word of this is true. Now, before I tell you how I took everything from the man who tried to destroy me, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You're not going to want to miss a single detail of this story. Trust me, by the end of this video, you'll understand why patience and planning beat anger every single time. All right, let's get into it. I met Troy when I was 21 years old, in my junior year of college. He was everything I thought I wanted. Ambitious, charming, always talking about building an empire. He had this energy that made you believe anything was possible. We fell in love fast, the kind of love that feels like a movie. Late night talks about our dreams, making plans for a future that seemed so bright I had to squint just to look at it. 2 years after we met, he proposed. I said yes before he even finished asking the question. Our wedding was beautiful. Nothing too fancy, but it was ours. My mama cried. His family welcomed me with open arms, and I genuinely believed I had found my forever person. We moved into a small apartment, and I worked as a marketing coordinator while Troy started his tech consulting business. I was more than just his wife. I was his partner. I helped him write proposals, design presentations, come up with strategies to land clients. Late nights at our kitchen table, me making coffee while he stressed over spreadsheets, me giving him ideas that he'd turn into money-making ventures. We were a team, or at least that's what I thought. His business started taking off after 3 years. We moved into a bigger house, bought nicer cars, started living the life we'd dreamed about. And that's when I found out I was pregnant. I remember taking that test in our master bathroom, hands shaking, tears running down my face. Happy tears. I ran downstairs and told Troy, expecting him to pick me up and spin me around like they do in the movies. But he just smiled, kissed my forehead and said, "That's great, babe," before going back to his laptop. I should have known then. I should have seen it. The next few months were strange. Troy started working later and later. He'd come home smelling like perfume that wasn't mine, and when I'd ask about it, he'd say it was from a client meeting or the cleaning lady at the office. I believed him because I wanted to. I was 6 months pregnant, glowing, excited, preparing our nursery, and completely blind to what was happening right in front of me. My friends would give me these looks when we'd all go out, and Troy would be glued to his phone, but I'd defend him. "He's building something for our family," I'd say. Girl, I was a fool. The truth came out on a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesdays were my prenatal appointment days, and Troy had promised to come to this one. He didn't show up. Didn't even call. So I drove to his office after the appointment to surprise him. Maybe take him to lunch, show him the new ultrasound pictures. I walked in and found his assistant Candace sitting on his desk, his hand on her thigh, laughing at something on his computer screen. They didn't even see me at first. When they finally looked up, there was no shame, no scrambling. Troy just sighed like I was interrupting something important. I asked him right there what was going on. You know what he said? He said he'd been meaning to talk to me, said that he'd changed, that his life was different now, that he needed someone who understood his level of success. He said Candace got him in ways I never could. I was standing there, 6 months pregnant with his daughter, and this man looked at me like I was a business deal gone bad. I begged. I'm not proud of it, but I begged him to think about our baby, about our vows, about everything we'd built together. He said he'd already made up his mind. 2 weeks later, I was served with divorce papers. He had his lawyers draw them up quick and vicious. He knew every loophole, every way to protect his assets. The business we'd built together? Apparently it was all in his name. The house? His name. Everything was his, and I was left with nothing but a baby on the way and a broken heart. His lawyer made me an insulting offer, a one-time payment of $15,000 and minimal child support in exchange for me signing away any claim to the business. I was so destroyed, so tired, so pregnant and scared that I signed it. Biggest mistake and best decision I ever made, all at once. I moved back in with my mother. Me, a grown woman with a college degree, sleeping in my childhood bedroom with pink walls and posters I'd hung up in high school. Every night I could hear my mama crying in the other room praying for me. I gave birth to my daughter Brianna on a rainy Thursday in March. Troy didn't show up to the hospital, didn't even call. I held my baby girl and promised her right then that we would be okay. I didn't know how, but I knew I couldn't let her grow up thinking her daddy was right for throwing us away. The first year was brutal. I was working 3 jobs, waitressing in the morning, doing freelance marketing in the afternoon, and cleaning offices at night. My mama would watch Brianna, and I'd come home so tired I could barely stand. Meanwhile, I'd see pictures on social media of Troy and Candace at fancy restaurants, taking trips to Dubai and Paris, living in a mansion. He'd taken my ideas, my strategies, my concepts, and used them to grow his company into something worth millions. And he was out here acting like I never existed, like our years together were nothing. But something happened around month 13 of this nightmare. I was sitting in my car outside the restaurant where I waitressed, crying before my shift, and I looked at a picture of Brianna on my phone. She was smiling, happy, innocent, and I realized something. I could stay broken, or I could get up and become the woman my daughter needed me to be. Not just a survivor, a winner. I enrolled in an MBA program. It took me 3 years going to night classes, studying while Brianna slept, writing papers in between shifts. I learned everything about business, finance, corporate strategy, contract law, market analysis. I became obsessed with understanding how companies grow, and more importantly, how they fall. I started a small consulting firm from my mama's dining room table, reaching out to small businesses that couldn't afford the big firms. I worked my tail off, building a reputation for being smart, thorough, and effective. By year 4, my firm had 15 employees and was pulling in serious revenue. By year 5, I had corporate clients and a downtown office. I'd transformed myself completely, professionally, financially, mentally. I was no longer that broken woman crying on her mama's couch. I was becoming powerful and I was doing it quietly. Troy had no idea. He thought I was still struggling somewhere irrelevant to his world. Then I started my real plan. See, I'd learned that Troy's success wasn't just because of his brilliance. It was because of shady business practices. Overcharging clients, cutting corners, underpaying employees, and some creative accounting that was definitely not legal. I started networking, going to the same conferences he attended, positioning myself in spaces where his competitors gathered. I listened, I learned, and I made connections with people who had no love for Troy. When I finally walked into an industry event where I knew Troy would be, I looked like money. Designer suit, hair laid, confidence radiating from every pore. He saw me from across the room and his face went pale. He actually walked over to me, had the nerve to smile and act friendly, asked how I was doing, said I looked great, made some comment about always knowing I had potential. I played it cool, professional, told him business was good. Didn't mention that my firm was about to go after everything he had. The first move was strategic. Troy's biggest client was a Fortune 500 company that represented 40% of his revenue. I'd done my research and knew they were unhappy with his services, but felt locked in by their contract. I reached out to them, not to talk trash about Troy, but to present a better offer. Better service, better rates, better results. They met with me, loved my proposal, and when their contract with Troy was up for renewal, they signed with my firm instead. Troy lost his mind. He called me, angry, accusing me of sabotage. I calmly told him this was just business, nothing personal. He said I was bitter and jealous. I laughed and hung up. That was just the beginning. Over the next 18 months, I systematically went after everything. I'd gathered evidence of his tax fraud. Nothing illegal on my part, just public records and testimonies from former employees who'd reached out to me. I submitted it all to the IRS. I connected with 3 former employees who'd been discriminated against and helped them find a lawyer to file a lawsuit. I reached out to his investors with concerns about his financial statements, which led them to do their own audit. One by one, the pillars holding up Troy's empire started to crumble. His other clients started leaving when word got out about the investigations. His business partners distanced themselves. Banks called in loans. His assets got frozen pending the IRS investigation. Everything he'd built, everything we'd built that he stole from me, was falling apart in real time. And I had a front row seat to all of it. The best part? Candace left him the moment the money dried up, just packed her bags and moved on to the next man with a fat wallet. Troy was left alone in that big mansion he couldn't afford anymore, realizing that everything he'd traded me for was disappearing. He showed up at my office on a Wednesday afternoon. My secretary told me he was there, and I almost didn't let him up. But I needed to see his face. He walked in looking like he'd aged 20 years. Defeated. Desperate. He actually had tears in his eyes when he asked me to help him, said we were family, said I was the mother of his child, said he was sorry. I let him finish. Then I stood up, walked around my desk, and looked him dead in his eyes. I told him that I didn't destroy him, he destroyed himself. I just made sure everyone knew who he really was. I told him that every sleepless night I spent working, every moment I struggled, every tear I cried while he was out living his best life with her, all of it had led to this moment. I told him I wanted him to remember that the woman he threw away like trash was the same woman who brought his entire world crashing down. He asked me if I felt better now, if revenge was worth it. You know what I told him? I said this wasn't revenge. Revenge would have been me acting out of anger, doing something stupid that would have hurt me too. This was justice. This was consequences. This was him finally paying for every selfish, cruel decision he'd made. Then I asked him to leave my office. That was 2 years ago. Today, my firm is worth $30 million. I have 80 employees, offices in 3 cities, and a client list that would make any CEO jealous. Brianna is 12 now, smart as a whip, confident, and completely aware that her mama is a force to be reckoned with. She knows the whole story, age-appropriate version of course, and she knows that her father made a choice that hurt us both, but that we didn't just survive it, we thrived because of it. Troy? He's not homeless or anything like that. He managed to keep a small version of his business running, pays his child support on time now, and sees Brianna every other weekend. He's humbled, smaller, different. Candace is apparently on husband number 3 now. I don't keep up with her. I don't need to. Here's what I learned from all of this. Sometimes the people who hurt you the most give you the greatest motivation to become who you were always meant to be. Troy didn't break me. He freed me from a life where I was making someone else's dreams come true while putting mine on hold. He taught me that the only person you can really depend on is yourself. And he showed me that patience and strategy will always beat anger and impulse. Do I regret what I did? Not even a little bit. Some people might say I went too far, that I should have just moved on and let karma handle it. But here's the thing. I was karma. I was the consequence of his actions coming back around. I didn't do anything illegal. I didn't lie or cheat. I just made sure the truth came to light and positioned myself to catch everything he dropped. The real victory isn't that Troy lost everything. The real victory is that I gained everything. Confidence, financial freedom, a business I built from nothing, and most importantly, I gained myself back. I showed my daughter that nobody gets to define your worth, that you can fall down and get back up stronger, and that being underestimated is sometimes the greatest advantage you can have. So that's my story. From pregnant and abandoned to CEO and unstoppable. If you made it this far, I need you to do 3 things for me. 1. Smash that like button if you believe in karma. 2. Subscribe to this channel because I've got more stories about taking back your power. And 3. Drop a comment below telling me, would you have done the same thing, or would you have handled it differently? I read every single comment, and I want to hear from you. Also, if you know someone who needs to hear this story, someone who's going through a betrayal or thinks they'll never recover, share this video with them. Sometimes people need to know that the comeback is always stronger than the setback. Remember, they can throw you away, but that doesn't mean you're garbage. It means they couldn't recognize treasure when they had it. I'll see you in the next video. Stay blessed, stay focused, and never let anyone write your ending. Peace.